It will emerge in due course. Why is this new strategic
leading up to Afghanistan? I'll finish on this note.
It has to be earned. Nations have to perform. And 5 years Afghanistan. Peacekeeping and combat cannot be neatly separated, and they do not represent different moral categories. Why am I saying this? Because I think realities on the ground are telling a different story. A transatlantic bargain for an alliance that is engaged in operations must be based on these operational realities. It must be based on a clear appreciation of the NATO summit. There will be a lot of talk of strategy with regard to Afghanistan, including, of course, the so necessary regional approach, more forces in the south of the country, stepped up civilian efforts, and a greater coordination between all the elements of the effort, civilian and military. I support all those ideas. They make sense. But we will have to ensure that we deliver on what we agree, which means coordinated action and more resources. From time to time, and I see many of my colleagues, this evolution, of course, does not proceed entirely independently from NATO. Other developments. It's an important region for NATO, as is the High North. Challenges we face in the 21st century. We need to come to a new understanding about the meaning of shared security. It's not enough to invoke imagery of a community of values, and it's certainly not enough to point to NATO's past achievements. Images of NATO as a knight in shining armor will only distract us from the serious task of shaping consensus on what we should do together today and how. Now, as you know, in the Cold War, the threat we faced was both visible. Regional elements are important. There is one NATO, and let's not regionalize NATO. That is the can be a big step in the right direction. The political constellation is favorable. There is a new United States administration that is determined to take a fresh approach. There is, I see, a European willingness to respond positively to this new approach. The return of France in NATO's integrated military structure will strengthen the alliance and, as important, help reduce the ambivalence in the NATO-European Union relationship. And a temporary freeze in the NATO-Russia relationship is thawing. Now, we must translate all this into political momentum, and we will, or at least we'll give it a try. The summit will endorse a short but powerful so-called Declaration on Alliance Security. And this document will reiterate NATO's fundamentals as a strong transatlantic community where security is indivisible. But even more importantly, I expect the summit to give the green light to start work on a new strategic concept. This process will engage all allies in a major intellectual exercise about all aspects of NATO, and in particular, the meaning of solidarity in our new security environment. And if we do it right, this can be a catalyst not only for NATO's own evolution, but also for the broader network of institutions that we so urgently need. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, collective defense, important as it is, solidarity needs to be. 2 new members are on the verge of joining NATO, and France. In my view, the future of NATO will be determined by 3 key factors. First, of course, anniversary in 1989, it even looked. This was not just easier in military terms. There, we could also offer.
I think you can sit wherever you like. Okay, good morning. Good to see so many of you here, despite the relentless pace and the late night sessions. So,
As a result of recent casualties in Afghanistan. There is so much at stake. We can't fail in Afghanistan. We can't fail in this important alliance, and the world's depending on us.
What are the Americans hoping for?
Just before I respond, I want to thank the German Marshall Fund. This whole joined-up approach requires a lot of coordination
Kane is very wise in talking about, as we clarify and redefine what the mission in Afghanistan is, that we do not make it minimal, that we do not say that this is really about going and then getting out. In the end, this is going to take a lot longer than I think we expect. It's going to be losses in the short term more than we want, but I think that it is clear that this is something that we have to do together. And as Jaap has said, this is a defining moment for NATO, and we have got to get this right.
Another summit, another...
Is an interesting idea, because at the same time, the US hopefully gets the opportunity to bring Iran into the equation on other dossiers than Afghanistan, and for us, it is important because we have not only the region but also other major players together. And if I say other major players, NATO is not only about Afghanistan, NATO is also very much about our relationship with Russia, which brings again into the equation rather.
When I was on Wall Street, we had a thing called deal fatigue. Now I think we've got lots of deals, and after overextending our military in Iraq for so long, now that things are doing better.
At it for months and years. And as you know, Poland has taken something of a political risk signing the agreement with the previous administration, even though there are objections from the Russian Federation. When we started discussing this business with the United States, the US assured us that they would persuade the Russians that it's purely defensive and that it would be a non-controversial decision. I'm afraid the Russian generals and even the Russian president still continues to threaten us with the deployment of medium-range missiles in our immediate vicinity. So we signed with the previous administration. We patiently wait for the decision of the new administration, and we hope we don't regret our trust in the United States.
I don't think you will.
On the budgetary question, I suppose?
Example that could be followed by other people acting unilaterally with these troops moving. The Spanish government is now saying this very weekend that
Destabilizing by Russia recently. Certainly the Georgia situation, what happened.
Future of NATO. As far as how the decision is made, that again is done very much by consensus and internally. I read reports, I read newspaper accounts. I'm not going to get drawn into the speculation. I'll leave that to others. All I can say is that Canada is a strong contributor, and I think that the fact that our nation is even being considered speaks mainly to the efforts of our armed forces, and I really salute their tremendous.
Erika Mann from Germany, member to the European Parliament. I have one question.
And a member of the ECB's.
And create a larger debt problem to have to deal with in the long term, then no, I will not be proven wrong. All of the scores, all of the budget figures dealing with the future will be wrong. Every time there is a projection, it is always wrong. Sometimes it's on the high side, sometimes it's wrong on the low side. A variety of reasons for that. We know what we can spend. We do not know what we will get in. Money does not come from the budget. Money comes from the economy, and the economy expands or contracts in ways that are impossible for the computers at CBO to second guess. So whatever figure is being put...
A default problem. We have the instruments. Crisis or needs for financial support in the non-euro area members, plus stronger economic coordination. And I think this crisis is showing us how weak has been the efforts to coordinate economic policies that are accepted to be a matter of national responsibilities in many areas, but a matter of common concern given the high degree of interdependence of our economy. So I fully agree with this, and I am convinced that from this crisis, the economic coordination instruments in Europe will be reinforced at the end. Second, a question of
What would be the constraints Congress would try to impose on that added stimulus?
The allotment mode rather than tendering is not standard monetary policy procedure. And we have not excluded that we will take additional measures as we go along and as needed, but we also said we are in the stage of discussing various instruments, but not at the point that we've reached firm decisions yet.
Any last question?
Thank you.